Hello everyone and welcome back. With 4.1.1 going to Wave 1 PTU, there have been some interesting ship log changes that have been revealed. There's actually a lot of adjustments to several different ships in both speed, hit points, maneuverability, all that sort of thing, cargo grids. There's also a few very interesting additions or changes to other items or weapons or things like that that are in the game. So today we are going to go through all of that and look at the biggest changes that are coming so far with 4.1.1 to different ships and vehicles and things like that. So if you want to see some of the latest changes that are going to be coming to the game really soon, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as we get started today, I did just want to give a quick shout out to my latest member, Soul Galaxia, for joining the JoJo's Wingman membership tier. Thank you so much, Soul Galaxia. I really appreciate the amazing support. And to anyone that is wondering about my channel memberships, I have 3 different tiers: JoJo's Engineer, JoJo's Wingman, and JoJo's Captain. They all come with exclusive perks like badges that'll show up next to your name when you comment in a video or on a live stream. You'll also get early access to certain new videos, especially with Invictus coming up. We're going to get some new ships, so ship reviews and things like that. You'll get early access to those videos as part of being a member. You'll also get shoutouts in videos, and there are a bunch of other perks. So go ahead and take a look at that. Feel free to check out the join button right below the video if you're interested in any of those things. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to start off with probably one of the biggest changes that is a part of this entire ship log change, and this is going to be for the Aegis Idris M. So let's go ahead and get into it. There's a lot to go through here, so I'll throw up a couple different screenshots of this section of adjustments. So first off, we have got a cargo grid adjustment for the Idris. Apparently it has actually lost some cargo capacity. It's gone from 1216 SCU down to 1024 SCU, so that's a 16% reduction in its cargo capacity. So not, that's a little bit significant, but it can still carry over 1000 SCU, so you can carry a lot of supplies for your Idris. It's also had its component mass ever so slightly decreased. Another big thing is its damage multiplier. So that's the base resistance that a lot of ships have, a base 50% resistance to like ballistic weapons and things like that. So that multiplier has actually been adjusted from 0.5 to 1, which at first I thought that meant it would be more resistant to ballistic damage, but upon thinking about it a little bit further, I'm pretty sure what that means is it no longer has that ballistic damage reduction. So I guess that'll make using ballistic weapons against the Idris a little bit more effective. Now, granted, again, it still has a ton of health, so it's going to take you a long while to knock this thing down, but just a very interesting little change there. We'll have to see if any other ships get a similar adjustment. Then we also have some pretty significant adjustments to its flight characteristics. Let's go ahead and get into it. So for the SCM speed, we have got a massive increase from 45 to 110 meters a second. That's a 144% increase. For our max speed, we've gone up from 800 to 850, so that's plus 6%, so a little bit faster in your nav mode. And then its maneuverability, so pitch, yaw, and roll have all gotten some boosts. So it's gone on pitch from 12 to 17 for 42% increase. For yaw, we're at 10 to 17 for a 70% increase. And then for roll, we've gone from 22 to 27 for a plus 23% increase. Earlier today, me and a friend were running around on an Idris, and he was piloting it. We were trying to hit some different targets with the railgun, so like Polaris's and other Idrises. And he said it actually felt pretty good to fly the Idris and being able to aim the railgun and keep it on target with this increased maneuverability. So good change to see. And I think especially the SCM speed going all the way up from 45 to 110 is a big boost, because before I remember flying the Idris a long time ago, and it was just so slow. It was really annoying. So glad to see that change. So then we have some changes to the thrust capacity of from some of the different thruster groups. So the retro thrust has been increased by 89%, from 289 million to 547 million. I don't know if that's, I assume that's probably going to be in like its kilogram thrust capacity or something like that. So a pretty substantial increase to the retro thrusters, so you should be able to slow down or reverse a little bit easier with that. Also, its maneuvering thrusters have had a 47% buff from 1.9 billion, if I'm reading that right, to 2.8 billion, I think. I might be reading that wrong, but there's also been a buff to the maneuvering thrusters, so that should help you out a little bit there as well. with its SCM mode for master modes, the boost has actually been nerfed a little bit. So its forward boost went from 290 to 220 meters a second, 24% nerf, and the boost backwards also went down 24% from 230 to 175. So a little bit of a nerf in terms of the boost capability. It also had that in regards to its boost multiplier. So all of its multipliers of the pitch, yaw, and roll axes, how much that gets boosted when you use Afterburner was reduced by 50%. So a little bit less effective on that, but I think it's understandable. You know, it's a very large ship. Those maneuvering thrusters can only, you know, put out so much power. So it makes sense to me. A couple of other last little things. The fuel capacity has been slightly adjusted for the Idris, but its fuel usage has been increased by about 89% on the retro thrusters, and then 47% on those maneuvering thrusters as well. But again, the Idris has like 6 gajillion hydrogen fuel, so it's like, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. And then the other interesting thing is the insurance claim timer has been adjusted for it. It's been increased, so it went from, I think this is 112 minutes to 253 minutes. So that's several hours. That's like 4 hours. Its expedited time has gone from 37 minutes to a little over an hour. And its cost has gone from, for the expedited cost, went from 56K to 150K. So I guess if that's what sticks when the Idris comes out, that'll be, if your Idris gets taken out, you'll be waiting at least an hour to be able to get that back, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny to get it back quicker as well. So very interesting changes overall for the Idris. I still don't think that we're going to get it at Invictus. I've heard some speculation around that. I don't think it's ready quite yet. I still think it needs some work. There's also supposed to be a new Idris model with a whole different exterior that's been redone that we saw in the Squadron 42 prologue. So I would expect that to be the Idris that we get when it goes flight ready. So I'm still in the camp that it's going to come out with Squadron sometime next year. But yeah, so I think they're just making some adjustments now, probably for it being as part of some of the new missions that are part of 4.1.1. But that is going to do it for the Idris. Let's go ahead and let's move on and talk about the Anvil Valkyrie a little bit. So for the Valkyrie, now there's already a couple of changes that you're probably already aware of it getting its whole HP buffed from about 44,000 to about 90,000. So those are laid out here. It has a pretty significant increase on the nose and the tail. So both of those, and I believe those are the vital parts of the Valkyrie, they've gone from 10,000 HP each up to 25,000 HP, so it's a 150% increase. Then some of the engine parts have also been buffed from 2,500 health to 6,500 for a 160% increase. So pretty good changes to see on there. I still think for ships like a ship like the Terrapin has like, I think 150,000 or 160,000 or so health. And that's significantly smaller than the Valkyrie, so I feel like the Valkyrie should maybe have a little bit more HP than the Terrapin. So I mean, if they were going to balance it like that, you'd probably see the Valkyrie up closer to the 200k HP range. Whether or not they'll do that, who knows. But it's a good change nevertheless. I'll take what I can get. So really big change there. And then we also have some maneuverability changes for the Valkyrie as well. Let's take a look at those real quick. So for its thrust capacity, it has had its main thrust increased by 23%, retro thrust increased by 45%, and its maneuvering thrust increased by 35%. Its acceleration has been buffed as well. So its main G-force acceleration has been buffed from 4.5 to 5.6 Gs for a 24% boost. Retro thrust has been increased from 1.7 to 2.5 for a 47% buff. Strafe has been increased slightly from 3.9 to 4.1 for a 5% boost. And then its up has been increased from 2.1 to 4.3 for a 105% boost, and down has also been increased from 2.1 to 4.3 for that 105% boost. So that should help in terms of its, being able to move it around and get it in really quick to drop off some ground crew and some vehicle or two and then get back out again. That combined with the HP should help a lot with that. It has had its fuel usage increased as well by about 23% for the main thrusters, 45% for the retro, and 35% for the maneuvering. But hydrogen fuel so far is not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy to refuel, so I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. It also says that the turret DPS, the burst DPS, has been nerfed by 10% from 4,200 to 3,800. I'm not quite sure what that would be about. I double checked and all the weapons are the same and everything. And I don't see any differences to the weapons, like the Panther repeaters that are on the turrets for the Valkyrie. So not entirely sure what that is. So I'll have to check on that at some point, but that is going to be the Valkyrie. Next, I will mention really quick, the Argo Raft is mentioned here. Again, its cargo grid has been massively increased from 96 SCU to 192 SCU. They've kind of redone the cargo area so it doesn't have those little crane arms that'll come down. There's just a upside down cargo grid that you can fit 632 SCU containers on, which is very nice. So good to see that. And I know a lot of people have been asking for the consolidated Outland Nomad to get its external storage working, and according to this, it has had its external storage added. So it's gone from 0 to 1.2 SCU. So you'll have to test that and see if that's working for you, but it looks like it should be in. I also heard that the MSR is going to be getting personal storage added as well. It just didn't make it into this initial Wave 1 patch, but I assume it'll probably be in the patch tomorrow, so we'll have to check that out then. Next, let's talk about a often very forgotten about ship, the Drake Herald. So it has also had a external storage area added that gives it 0.9 SCU of storage on the ship. Very nice to see those little quality of life improvements being made to it. It's also had a little bit of an increase to its component mass, and oddly enough, its total missile damage has been increased from 9,200 to 43,000. So I assume that would mean that either the missiles it carries have gotten larger and so they, do more damage, or it's gotten additional missile hardpoints to be able to hold some more missiles on there. So very interesting change. I'll have to try and test that out maybe in a patch or two and see what differences there are there. And also on the Esperia Blade, the missile damage on that has actually had a nerf from 18,000 all the way down to 9,000 for a 47% decrease in that. So it may have had some missiles taken away from it. Seems like there's a couple of other things I'll mention later that are in here that are about missiles, and it seems like they may be making some adjustments to that, because I know missiles have been very strong recently, especially if you're in like a Saber Firebird or other things like that. They're very, very strong for taking out fighters or, slightly larger than that targets very quickly. So we'll have to see what that shapes up to be. Next, we have some interesting changes that are being made to another sometimes forgotten ship, the Esperia Prowler, which is a stealth drop ship. It's an alien ship. There's been some really interesting changes, so let's go through it. So first, it has had its signal multiplier, so that's going to be its stealth reduction multiplier slightly reduced. So electromagnetic has been reduced from 0.4 to 0.35, infrared from 0.42 to 0.37, and cross-section from 0.6 to 0.55. They've also apparently removed the health points from some of the thrusters. It's also had some flight characteristic adjustments, so we'll go through that real quick. So its SCM speed has been increased from 200 to 205. Max speed has been increased from 1100 to 1150. Its pitch has been upped from 35 to 38, yaw from 30 to 32, and roll from 100 to 110. So it should be a little bit more maneuverable now, which is nice to see. It has had its main thrust capacity reduced by 70%, so that may affect, that's going to probably affect its ability to, get out of where it's going in. And then interestingly enough, the retro thrust has been increased by 33%, and then the maneuvering is just ever so slightly different with a 1% reduction on that, so pretty insignificant in that sense. Its fuel burn rate has also been decreased, but the fuel usage from the main thrusters also decreased. Retro thrusters has been increased, and the maneuvering thrusters have ever so slight decrease. And then the last interesting thing is its overall emissions for the ship itself have received a little bit of a decrease as well, which is actually a good thing. That makes the ship more stealthy, so it seems like it's trading off a little bit of that stealth multiplier, but it's still getting a slight reduction to its overall signatures. So its cross-section signatures have all been reduced by 8%. So from the front 4,400 to 4,000, side from about 9,500 to 8,600, and the top from 10,000 to 9,200. So about an 8% drop on the cross-section signatures. So, there's some things they gave up. They adjusted a little bit for that stealth signature, but they compensated for it a little bit with that cross-section. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm hoping there really can be some more viability to ships like the Prowler, because it seems like it's not super duper useful right now. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. Alrighty, next we have a very nice change coming for the MISC Starlancer MAX. So its claim timer, I always thought was quite long for a ship of its size. Like a C2 had a slower claim timer than the Starlancer, but they have adjusted that. So the standard claim time has been reduced from 40 minutes to 12.5 minutes or so, it looks like. The expedited claim time has been reduced from 15 minutes to just over 3 minutes. And the expedited cost has gone from 15,000 to 5,100. So that brings it a lot more in line with ships like the Connie, the Corsair, other medium to large ships in that range. So that'll be very nice instead of having to wait like 15 minutes for it when you have to claim it. Very annoying to do so. So good change there. And then really quick, I probably won't go through all of these, but there have been a lot of flight characteristic adjustments to all of the Auroras, and they all, I've skimmed through them and they all seem to be slightly different, but basically some very slight adjustments to their SCM speed, pitch, yaw, roll, the thruster capacity, the acceleration, all those sorts of things. All of them have seen ever so slight adjustments to that. But yeah, so nothing super crazy there. Let's go ahead and next I wanted to take a look at a couple adjustments actually to some grav bikes. So on the grav bikes really quick, we have some adjustments to the Aopoa, however you say that, the Nox. It's had some health point pools removed for some of the thrusters, I believe, as well on that. But it has had a little bit of a 9% increase to its main thrust capacity. Its fuel usage has also gone up a little bit, so nothing too crazy there. You might be able to go a little bit faster or accelerate a little bit harder on that. I still think grav bikes are in a really weird space, and they need to figure out the physics overall for ground vehicles, because right now they're a little bit janky sometimes. Now next, there's an armor section. There is an interesting addition here. So there is been added in here armor MISC Starlancer TAC. So I assume this just happens to do, something with the Starlancer TAC. Again, I think just even more confirmation that this ship is all but guaranteed to come at Invictus. We've even seen there's been some leaks with some of the Invictus posters, and one of the posters has the Starlancer TAC on it. So again, I think we should really expect this to be the absolute guaranteed ship that we get for Invictus, and then some of the other ones I still think aren't 100% confirmed yet. We probably will get a little bit more information on that pretty soon in the next week or two, I would expect. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see the news on that. I'll make sure to let you all know what we find out as soon as I'm able to find out any of that new information. Now, under the hardpoint weapons section, we have some adjustments to the Idris M's mass driver cannon. So that is the spinal mounted size 10 railgun that the Idris has. So it has had some buffs and some nerfs to it. So let's go ahead and take a look. So the rounds per minute that you can fire has been increased from 1.5 to 2. So that's going to be 1 round for every 30 seconds. The overcharge time, so I think that's once it gets to fully charged and how long it can sit there for, has been reduced from 20 to 15 seconds, so you can only hold that full charge for so long before you have to let it go. And the cooldown has been reduced from 30 to 20 seconds, so I think that's actually a positive thing. It makes it a little bit quicker to get the next shot to start charging. And then the damage per second has increased by about 33%. Well, I'm pretty sure the alpha damage, from what I've seen, it shows right now that it's about 288,000 alpha damage, which is quite devastating. We tested it a little bit today, and I think with one hit to a Polaris's body, it made it red, and I think it was maybe 1 or 2 more hits, and that took it out. It seems like having shields up, though, does affect the amount of damage you take from it, so it's not like a instant delete button for the Polaris or anything, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Now, another very interesting addition to this section is what I assume from the description here is the Hurston Dynamics laser beam bespoke, which is the size 10 laser beam weapon that replaces the railgun on the Idris M, and I believe that'll go on the Idris K, I want to say. So there's just a mention of it in here. It says its size has been increased from 1 to 10, but just saying it's being mentioned, so I don't know if we're going to see the Idris P anytime soon in the game, or the Idris K, and see that specific weapon for that version of the Idris, but just thought I'd let you all know that it's in there. It's being mentioned, so we'll have to see if we see that at some point in the future. Now, there's a little bit of a change under the missile section to one of the, I think, more popular missiles right now. This is going to be the Arrow 1 missile, and it was pretty popular because it had the most damage out of any size 1 missiles, but with this patch it is showing the damage has been reduced by 47%. So we've gone from 2300 damage down to 1200. It's also had its min radius reduced from 1.8 to 1.5, and the max radius reduced from 2.88 to 2. So an overall nerf to that specific missile. I think it was pretty significantly more powerful than any of the other size 1 missiles, so this should bring it more in line with the other ones, and yeah, so interesting to see some adjustments there. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some more missile adjustments as well throughout the patch, because again, they have been shown to be very, very strong with all the Align and Mine stuff. If you have a Saber Firebird, you can be a menace to a lot of different spaceships, so very interesting to see. Alright, now we're down to our last couple of things here. I'll just mention under the paint section there are new liveries mentioned for the Atlas Cobalt livery, and the Atlas Granite livery, so there may be some new paints we get pretty soon. Under shield controllers, so this is actually pretty interesting. So the shield layout for the Redeemer, since it got changed to 6 size 2 shields, it has had a front and back shield layout, but that is now getting changed to a bubble shield. The Argo Mole is getting changed from a bubble shield to a quadrant shield. I believe that got upgraded to a size 3 shield fairly recently. And then the Starlancer is also getting changed from a bubble shield to a quadrant shield, which should bring it in line with other ships like the Corsair and the Connie that also have the quadrant shields. So I prefer that. It gives you a little bit more flexibility too if you want to have more of the shield facing forward, or you can, you know, turn your ship to recharge the one side that's gotten damaged and tank the other side. So very good to see that change. But yeah, some interesting little shield changes on that. And then under the turret section, we have a manned turret that has been added, and its description reads as the Aegis Idris turret large P. So I don't know if this has anything to do with the Idris P, but, you know, it's mentioned, so do with that what you will. And then we also have the remote turret added for the Argo Raft tractor beam. That has been also added on the rear starboard side of the ship. You can use to load cargo boxes onto the new cargo grid. But that is going to do it for all of the shiplog changes for this initial big 4.1.1 Wave 1 PTU patch. I'm sure we'll probably get some further additions and changes as we go through the PTU cycle, so I'll make sure to mention those in future videos going over those new patches. But if you enjoyed this breakdown of all the ship changes, feel free to give a like on the video as it really helps the channel. Again, feel free to check out the channel memberships to get exclusive access to new videos coming in the future, as well as other perks if you're interested in that. And until next time, I will see you in the verse.